So God has been speaking to me in many ways. And one concept that was revealed to me recently that I fully resonated with was the concept of soul ties. As I started researching about it, I started realizing that God was exposing why there have been delays in my blessings. Now, don't get me wrong, I've always been a grateful person in one way or another. But there was definitely a huge blockage in my life, especially in regards to love. I've talked about my experiences already of teaching others and then being abandoned over and over in my life. And I never understood why this happened. So it was easy to blame myself, even though I always had good intentions. Regardless, I never took it personally and always kept moving on and meeting new people. But of course, I didn't have God. But recently, through this concept, it was revealed to me how everything started. And as usual, it's something spiritual. When I was younger, I had a traumatic experience where a karaoke page where I started having passion for singing and made my first true friends suddenly, quickly shut down. With that sudden shutdown, I lost all my recordings of singing of my beginnings. I lost contact with so many treasured friends that I never spoke to again. And I lost all the memories I had, messages and conversations, as well as comments in my recordings. It was like having a home suddenly burned down in the blink of an eye. With no warning, I lost it all. And inside that home that got burned, there were people inside that symbolically got burned as well. Because you never see them again. You don't even have a memory, an accurate memory to remember them by. So symbolically, I lost so many people, like a death. And it was traumatic for me. Because in actuality, these were my first true friends ever in my life. And it would happen around my teens. And through singing, it was the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. Because in person, I felt like an outcast. And I was bullied a lot. It also hurt a lot to lose the community aspect of that website. It's something that I never recovered, really. I never really fit in the world. I always felt awkward until I found that website. And then I lost it all. So it was a painful mourning period for me that in a way I never recovered from. Because nothing replaced that, in a sense. Especially with one particular person that I lost contact with. That was like my first fan. And her passion as a fan was what motivated me to sing, keep going and improving even when she wasn't there anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt seen by somebody. And I always hoped she would return and be proud of the progress I had made. Unfortunately, I've told this story before. I failed drastically at singing. And I was stuck in a loop for years of just failure. It was depressing. Thank God I found God. Some of the friends I made on that website, 3 specifically, did stay. I managed to stay in contact with 3 of them, but eventually, they as well drifted apart, which symbolized the complete erasing of that period of my life. But it was a key moment in my life, even though it was traumatic, that dictated how my entire life would go. It was both the spark of a passion, but also the spark of a fire that eventually would lead me to burn. You see, what happened after this event in my life was that I became traumatized to lose things. So I would be desperate to protect myself from the same thing happening again. Not in the sense of not trying, like being afraid to try, but in the sense of losing it all. When I say losing it all, I mean the memories of the experiences. Because as we know, we don't have, for example, screenshots or photos of things that happened. We start losing those memories. We don't remember how precisely some things happened, or even at all. To me, that was a scary thought after what I went through. I was so deeply hurt by that experience that what most people would consider just an ordinary conversation or moment, I deeply treasured. So it made me a very grateful person. I was also building something that I wasn't supposed to, and I'll get to that. But yes, here's where the concept of soul ties begins. I started using apps like Dropbox, Google Drive, Box to store screenshots that I would take, conversations, key moments, etc., with people that I treasured and loved. It was always with the notion that if they eventually left, at least I would have those memories. Which is funny because it's a form like of self-sabotage. Like, it's from the premise that the person will leave, if that makes sense. So it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You see, here's the thing. God didn't create electronic devices, cameras, etc. Humans created that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but imagine a death in biblical times and how hard it must have been to not have any memories of your partner that died. You just gotta deal with the loss in an abrupt way. But it does free you up. Not get hung up on the memories, if that makes sense. Keeping things that in actuality prevent the new from coming in. So my case wasn't that the new wasn't coming in though, but that it was never the right person, and it would always end in the same way. And so they came into my life to be awakened in many ways, to learn from me, and then they left. I never really learned anything from them, just received temporary love or friendship. I'll talk about those experiences in more detail in other videos. The point is, when I look back on it, God knew I wasn't ready yet in actuality, because I wasn't awakened to my God-given purpose yet. So in actuality, He was protecting me in so many ways that I didn't realize yet. With my last relationship, I've already told stories that it started great, felt like a fairy tale. Yeah, I finally met the person I was gonna be with, but then it turned toxic really fast. It's funny because everything God teaches that we shouldn't do, she did. Constant lies involved, idolatry of artists, worldly priorities over love, avoidant behavior, narcissist traits, ghosting as a form of punishment, and gaslighting, twisting the truth, to shift the blame. I could go on. Heck, the lies alone were exhausting enough. But despite it all, I still tried to help her, because I recognize that normal people don't do this. Hurt people hurt people. So I wasn't perfect either, but I had the right intentions, and it led me to God eventually. It's funny because not only did it lead me to God, but to a new job, to a promotion, to new friends, and to creating a TikTok. So I got so many benefits from just trying to help her, even though she was hurting me. Because God rewards love unconditionally, because that's what He does for us. Even in the end, she didn't appreciate anything I did, really, which was my main issue. I just wanted her to appreciate it at least. But she wouldn't. She would give fake apologies, and even at one point faked being with someone else after a breakup, and then later admitted it was a lie. I don't know what she was doing, trying to make me jealous. I had no idea. The most important thing out of the experience was what God was trying to teach me, that I was doing, but later on, it gave me the full answer, progressively. It was that for the first time in my life, breakup was so intense and confusing that it triggered all my love coming out unconditionally. And it's crazy because I discovered through it talents that I didn't even know I had. And it also led me to spirituality, plus new people, and a promotion. Like, I got so much out of it, it's crazy. I even started thinking it was a twin flame connection because I was growing so much in so many ways that I was like, man, this has to be something. And it was. It was by God. Obviously, the greatest gift I got from that experience is meeting God. Now my life is completely different from back then. I was a completely different person. Back then, I was completely closed off to God in a future alongside Him. But this girl was placed in my life as a form of catalyst, predestined chaos that would lead me to peace. God knew I would try to help her. I knew I wouldn't just break up and act like it never happened and just ignore her. God knew I would keep on persisting, which would eventually lead me to surrender and finding Him, and finding my true purpose in life. By the way, Kata's relationships are biblical.